Okay, so that brings us to the prayer. So we're at the prayer now, the verses that we're actually studying. So the first verse is 14. For this reason I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named. Now, there's a little thing here, I guess. The common posture of prayer of this time was standing, hands folded, hands out, something like that. And so the people say, there's something here about the bowing of the knee. Paul's on his knees, bowing knees, so he's not down on a knee. He's down on both knees. And so I guess, since Paul is doing it here, we can see that this is an acceptable posture for prayer for all Christians. And I think someone who takes that to heart, obviously, is Brother William. He's always, when there's prayer going on, William is on his knees. And that's what Paul did. So I think it's good enough for Paul. It's good enough for all of us. But I decided to do a little delving in to see what other postures of prayer there are in the scriptures. I didn't find a whole lot, but I found a couple of interesting things. 1 Kings 8, verse 22, it talks about King Solomon, who stood before the altar of the Lord in the presence of all the assembly of Israel and spread out his hands toward heaven, lifted them up towards heaven, and prayed. And it was a long prayer. I don't think he finished until like verse 50 something. So it was it wasn't all prayer, but maybe there was some description there. But that's obviously a way that you can pray. Jesus, in Luke 22, at the Garden of Gethsemane, when he withdrew, it says in verse 41 that he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed. So Jesus kneeled, pray. But here's an interesting one to ponder. 1 Thessalonians says, pray without ceasing. It's verse 5:17, 1 Thessalonians. So I would imagine, since we're to be praying without ceasing, then any posture you're in is okay for prayer. See, I think there's something that's a little bit more important in prayer than your posture. But let's look at one more posture. John 17, the high priestly prayer, which we mentioned earlier. Verse 1 is where Jesus begins the prayer, and it says, Jesus spoke these words. Those are the words of comfort to the disciples. And he lifted his eyes to the heaven and said, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son. So he prayed this way. He looked up to the Father and prayed. It doesn't say he lifted his hands. I don't know where he had them, but so we can look to the Father. There's other places in the Bible where it talks about bowing your head. So we can bow our heads. I think the thing that's more important is the heart of prayer. And I think Paul's heart here is pretty evident when you read the prayer. But we do have some warnings about praying from Jesus. He says not to pray on the street corner to be seen. So if your heart of your prayer is to be seen praying, that's not the heart Jesus wants. That's not the correct posture of prayer. It's okay to stand on the street corner and pray, but don't make a scene of it so that you're praying so that people will see you. God also tells us to pray alone. He tells us to go in private and pray so that nobody sees and only he knows. So that was a little tangent on prayer that I think is important, because I noticed the term bow my knees doesn't seem to be one you see a lot in the letters of Paul.